before we get started, I'm just going to introduce myself. I am Sean Doyle. I've been with Countryside since 2013. I was a public school teacher before that for about 10 years. Truth be told, I've known the Aspinalls forever, and it was kind of a mutual wooing. I was ready to try something new, and they were ready to have someone new, and so came over and observed and got to meet some of the students and took to it immediately. So love it, and I'm going to hand it over to Kim so she can introduce herself.
I'm Kim Anderson. My family has been at this school for 29 years. My son, who's 32, was here, and I have 4 children. I have 32 to 13 with the same husband. That's a whole different story. They've all gone to school here, and I started working here about 23 years ago. I taught high school before, and I found Montessori for my children, and I learned about it in college and when I got my master's, and I really felt it was important that my children be here. And then when I came in one time, they said, have you ever thought about doing Montessori training and switching your career from teaching high school to Montessori? And I'm so glad I did, and I've been here ever since. And so 4 of my children have gone through this school, so I can talk about transitions into public school and traditional settings at after 6th grade, after 8th grade, high school. My 13-year-old daughter goes to Northbrook Junior High. I live in Northbrook. My other children are all grown and out of college. They went to 2 of them went to Northbrook Junior High also, and Glenbrook North. My daughter was here for middle school when we had it, and then she went to Glenbrook North. So I have a great range of current and old information that will hopefully be helpful to you.
I should mention my kids too, they kill me. I have 2. One is a senior in high school, one is an 8th grader, and they both went here from Mrs. Aspinall's on. And my son is going to, I think I said he was a senior, yeah. He is exploring different colleges right now. Originally I'm narrowing it down between the East Coast, the Midwest, and the West Coast. So we've got him to the Midwest and the West Coast, and so we'll see what happens. But I too can talk about experience after Countryside. One went to the middle school here, and the other went on after 6th grade. So we'll start talking tonight, and before I get into anything or Kim gets into anything, this is really, just like the title says, it's really a night of discovery. Many parents love Countryside, but they may not know what really the Montessori experience is all about. So we're going to talk a little bit about Maria Montessori and the second plane of development without getting too theoretical. But we're really wanting to show you what we're all about in a way that is kind of refreshing and insightful. This was a slide we inserted today, and this really symbolizes what elementary is all about. Just to give you a little background, and Kim, please, whenever. The children in this group are all 3rd graders, and they read The Lemonade War. And they were so moved, well, not moved, but they loved the story so much that they thought it would be fun to set up their own lemonade stand. The basic premise of the book is a brother and sister get into a war of who's going to sell the most lemonade. And they end up, well, I'm not going to give it away. Never mind. But this is about really what we can offer in elementary that's so fun is they wanted to create their own lemonade stand and sell lemonade. So today, right before lunch, they set up a lemonade stand. One of them actually had a stand at home.
They were going to build it,
yeah.
Thank God. She's like, I have one at home. We're like, can you bring it? Bring it in. Otherwise
And
we would have built it.
Yeah, they sold lemonade for $1 a cup. We made sure that they were charging just that amount, and some tipped, which was nice. And then all the money that was raised is going to gym equipment and playground equipment and recess equipment. So it was really a lot of fun. And many times these things can be spur of the moment. And Kim and I sit back for a minute and think if it's relevant or if it's worthy. And this definitely was something where we could integrate math, we could integrate what we read about, and a chance to give back to the community, which is something we'll talk about further. Give back to the elementary community by raising a little money for equipment for recess.
And that was all their idea. We didn't say, we're going to raise money for this. I said, well, you're going to have all this money. What do you want to do with it? Who's going to count it? They had to divvy up jobs. They had to figure all of that out in a shorter amount of time than what they would normally have. But because we weren't bound by language arts at 8:30, math at 9:30, because they had a little more freedom, they could explore more and really come up with all the ideas and talk about organization and teamwork and arguing. We talked a lot about that. Once you have customers, you can't argue with each other. You have to support each other, figure out what you're going to do. And then they had to collect the money. They had to get change sometimes. They had to figure out who was doing what job and accept that, even though they didn't always agree. So it was a lot of trial and error. And one of the children said, well, that means we're trying something new, but we're going to make mistakes. And I said, that's where the real learning happens, and that's the love of learning. It's something that I didn't impose on them. It was something that they really wanted to do, and I just helped them get to the final product. But the process was really the most important.
So Marie Montessori believed there were 4 planes of development, and that's something we recognize here at Countryside: infancy, childhood, adolescence, and maturity. I apologize, the slide is a little bit blurry on the bottom, but it was really good, I thought, to show the childhood portion, the 6 to 12. And by the way, after we're done, or even during, I have a copy of the slideshow in a little packet form if you want to take any notes or scribble anything or make comments about the quality of the delivery tonight. So, but mental independence is part of the childhood phase of development, as well as imagination. These children, when they get to elementary, they really want to explore, they want to socialize, they want to work together, they want to ask questions. Not just can I, but why and how. And so that's what we're really trying to nurture upstairs in elementary. And they tattle a lot. And you might think at first, oh my gosh, why do I care if so-and-so is using so-and-so's pencil? But that is also part of the development. They want to see what flies, to put it bluntly. They want to see what's fair and what's not fair, and what is okay to do in the classroom and what isn't. And a lot of times their way of finding that out is a simple tattle. Now the way Kim and I handle that is a lot of times, I think you can work this out on your own, especially with a pencil situation. Sometimes we'll get involved, and when we do, that is a sit down between a teacher, maybe an older student, if an older student tried to help first, which we'll talk about in a minute. But a lot of times it is just a peaceful conversation more than anything. It is not, we're going to go, like in my traditional days, we're going to go out in the hall and have a moment, we'll be right back. It's more just let's talk, let's discuss, let's figure out both sides and find a common medium.
We start with what happened, and we give them both a chance to talk and come up, and now what are we going to do about it? So we come up with solutions together as well.
So I want to go on to the next slide, which really talks a little bit more about the second plane in our classroom. Not to read it, but it is the development of the inquisitive mind, and being inquisitive by asking questions create a natural knowledge flow, and we want that aha moment. Kim and I really like to think of our teaching as a kind of a big tease sometimes, where we're giving you just enough, hopefully, where you want to explore on your own. We really foster exploration. We really try to follow the child's interests as best as we can. And so we really give the lesson in a core format. We give a premise of what we're learning about. For instance, with the Lemonade War, we read the story. There are different aspects of reading and reading strategies we study, and then they wanted to take it further, and we had that moment. But it's also about collaboration. And the next couple slides I show you will be videos and pictures of children collaborating. This is a Montessori staple. We are not really all about a quiet classroom. when I taught traditional school, the quieter it got, the more nervous I got, like there was a plot being formulated that there was, I was going to be taken over. But it's got a buzz to it, a hum to it. And when that is happening, that's when we feel like our classroom is at its best. Now that being said, sometimes the buzz gets a little high and we have to ask if the conversations are school related or if they're what are you doing for the weekend related. So we bring them back, but it is a healthy buzz in the classroom. And again, we're asking the children to ask why, how. Don't settle for what we're teaching you necessarily. If you want to know more, let's talk about it. Let's get you the materials you need. Let's go to the library. Let's find some books on the shelf that'll supplement what you want to learn about and enrich that. So this was not my classroom in the traditional setting, but this was very familiar. When I found this picture, I thought, yeah, I remember that. Or sometimes we'd put them in a big circle, or sometimes we'd put them in a big square. But it was all about a teacher-centered environment. What's Mr. Doyle going to say today? And then everyone's going to be quiet, and I'm going to give my social studies lesson, and my math lesson, and my reading lesson. And then you're going to go home and decipher everything with your parents and figure out if you remember what I talked about. Here, the children are doing 99% of the work here. And they're working with each other to find the answers. They're working with us to maybe find the answers, or they're looking into themselves to find the answers. So this is an example of a little bit of collaboration. Try not to notice the rip of the page as one of the boys is turning it. I found that out after I already looked at the slideshow. But anyway, it's a couple fourth graders with a third grader, and they're doing a geography search. They're looking at different aspects of geography together. On the next one, we have, there we go. We have a first grade boy and a first grade girl working together, but on different subjects. One is doing a language work and another is practicing her time telling. Over here on the left side, these are two fifth graders that are working on a science project on magnetism. I want to mention too, this is all going on basically in the same day. We're not all, as Kim alluded to earlier, we don't have a set time where here, put away your materials, it's time for social studies, or put away everything, it's time for math. We are giving lessons throughout the day based on what we obviously need to do, according to our lesson plans, we lesson plan, but then we're asking the children, we'd like you to come to a lesson a little bit about such and such if you're available. And that's a big buzz phrase used in elementary, if you're available. We really don't want to interrupt your work. If you're working independently on something and you're invested in that work, the last thing Kim and I want to do is say, stop what you're doing, we're going to read, So it's really all about working with each other, working with each other to find a common time where we can get this lesson. Sometimes, yes, we do have to say, we've got to do it. You've been working on this a while, but I really want to do this follow-up so we can move on to the next concept. But mostly it's all about if you're available. And these children are working throughout the day on things that they not only need to follow up with based on lessons we've given, but things that interest them. So the science project, for instance, we had been studying magnetism for quite some time, and these boys had an experiment they found and wanted to try it out. So I said absolutely, they found a place to do it. With the first grader and the two first graders in the middle, one of them wanted to work on practicing the adjective. So he got out the materials he needed to do to practice that. The other little girl wanted to practice her time telling. She's a first grader, she's learning time and needs to practice that. There's no set time for them to do that. They pick a time when they'd like to do that and budget it into their day. Oh, I'm sorry, and the last picture is our lovely Mrs. Anderson working one-on-one with a boy with some math work. Is that right? This is something I'm especially proud of in elementary as well. We have the opportunity throughout the day to work with children one-on-one. Our lessons are primarily in small groups, 5 or 6 children on average. But this little boy needed extra practice with math. Kim's available, they sit together, and they work on math. There are other teachers in the room, which we'll introduce in a little bit, that are helping observe, that are helping make sure the classroom is running the way it should be. But she's able to devote her time to this little boy with his math work because that's the way our classroom's structured. We're not a whole class necessarily environment. We're not breaking everything to stop to give the lesson to everybody. We never do. Everything is small group. And that leads to better assessment, which I'll talk about a little later. It leads to really following the child a lot more in terms of their pace and their mastery of a certain concept. But I thought this was cool because this really happens quite a bit throughout the day, these opportunities to work either in very small groups or even in a one-on-one setting. There we go. There are 5 principles of the Montessori method that I'm not going to read the whole slide, but really it breaks down to respect for the child, the absorbent mind, sensitive periods, the prepared setting, and auto-education. Respect for the child is something we do by giving them quite a bit of freedom. Certainly freedom that they don't experience outside of a Montessori setting. They have the freedom in an ideal world. Now this sometimes needs a little help, but they come in every day and they write their decoration and their date. That's our big thing. Make sure you write your date so we know what's going on. They have a work journal that they keep all of their work in, and that's where they put their decoration and date. Then they have the freedom to choose. What do I feel like starting with today? I might want to do math. I might want to do some map work I did with another student. I might have to read with my older mentor or tutor. They have that opportunity to choose. They have the opportunity to choose where they like to sit. We don't have assigned seating upstairs in our elementary classroom. They have maximum independence. Now again, sometimes Kim and I need to help them with that independence. But I was talking to my wife last night preparing for this, and she said, make sure you tell them that it's not a bunch of chaos up there, that they actually...
Organized.
Right, it's organized. And I laughed and I said, absolutely. It may look when you come in like, wow, but that's a lot of things. I was talking to the Mamanis today, and I was saying there's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of things going on, and that's the way we like it. There's a lot of different learning going on. There's lessons going on. There's independent work going on. The absorbent mind, we are in a Montessori community considered a guide. We are in a perfect setting in the background. We're providing the lessons, we're providing the access to the materials, but really we are nurturing independence and nurturing exploration. We want these children to get excited. And if we're teaching them something that they're not excited about, we have the ability to say, okay, we're going to pause a minute and maybe we'll go about it in a different way, or maybe there's something else that we need to incorporate in the lesson. There's not a set way of doing it.
One of the great things about the small group lessons, I'm thinking of, we have a curriculum, obviously, that we follow, but I have 3 years in first, second, third grade to teach those things. So I have a mastery list, I have things that I want to get done. So I sat down with my group of third graders and I said, we're going to start decimal fractions. There's a lot of steps within it, and about 5 minutes in, I could tell, because there were only 6 of them, I could tell right away, this is not, like, they were glassed over. And I have the ability to say, you know what, we're going to pick this up again another time. We have the whole school year to get this done, and if not, Mr. Doyle will get to it. And they all came up after and said, I didn't understand that at all. I have no idea what I'm doing. And we have material with it and all of that, but I'm not bound by this curriculum at a set time on a set day that I have to teach something. And who gets it, who doesn't, oh well, we're moving on. I don't have to do that. I can stop and say, okay, there's a couple of you. I say to myself, there's a couple that understand, the other ones don't. So those two are going to continue on. They're going to work with Mr. Doyle on that, and I'm going to work on some other things, maybe go back a little bit and work on that with these other children, because we're not teaching the whole class the same thing at the same time. And then those children will get a different lesson that they can work on that will help them prepare for decimal fractions, which they will get. They just weren't ready for it at that time. And so that's the beauty of these small group lessons, because I can do an assessment, then they can do a self-assessment, so I can tell where they are without giving them a formal test, where I say, oh gosh, this way when I'm in the lesson, it's more of a conversation and a dialogue. I can see where they are and what they need in that moment. So it's very, although it's a small group lesson, it's also the classroom is a very individualized program, and it meets the child's needs where they are at that time.
Just for comparative sake, and I want to make sure that if we haven't said it already, it is really your comfort zone in your choice. We are not here ever to say traditional, no, bad, countryside, good. It's really, that's what the discovery is all about. It's really just getting familiar with what we're doing and why we believe in it. Traditional schooling through a Montessori lens, if you will, is frequent assigned seating, is a more structured environment, and it's whole class instruction. Is learning through the teacher doing most of the talking throughout the day. And it's, as Kim has said on more than one occasion, it's really a set time. We're going to break now for gym, we're going to break now for art, we're going to break now for social studies, stop everything you're doing and get that out. This I liked when I was looking up information. The learning environment may have a lot of visual stimulation, but limited resources. And I found that out when I was a traditional teacher. I had to have so much stuff on my walls that you couldn't even see what the original paint color was. It was just bulletin boards and posters and a lot of stuff so the kids could look and go, wow, this is great. But then when they wanted to find materials that they got excited about, it was like, so here we really set up the room so it's very pleasing. Michelle did a great job a while back and put up some fantastic artwork. But our shelves are filled with materials that they can use, whether it's in lower elementary to learn a basic concept, or it's in upper elementary where you start to master those concepts and build on them with different materials. We have mostly things that they can use, things that they want to take out, things that they want to practice with. And then, again, the teacher is solely responsible for the instruction. And yes, in a traditional setting, a lot of stuff goes home, and a lot of parents have to remember how to do algebra or how to do long division and how to teach that. At my house, when my daughter comes home with math homework, we have a certain hierarchy where I'm first because I teach elementary, so I have a certain amount of math knowledge, and then if I can't get it, then it goes to my wife, who loved math when she was younger, and then if neither of us can get it, then we get our senior involved, who's an ace in math. But it's always the same. I don't know. Next, I don't know. That, so, but these children in our environment are teaching themselves a lot. And they, like I said, they're exploring a lot, but I've had children pick up algebra. I've had children learn about different countries on their own because they love geography. They explore that on their own. They're not looking for me to necessarily teach that particular topic. I'm introducing a certain aspect of that, but then they want to take it and run with it.
Montessori lessons are very much giving the big picture, and the children pick up all the details. So we give a big picture and they pick up the details of that. Yes?
I wasn't sure if we were allowed to interrupt and ask
Please.
questions, but when you were talking about the small groups and recognizing that this kid isn't interested in this, we'll come back to this, whatever, I'm thinking, and I've always been so impressed with all the teachers here about how nuanced they know every single student. How do you keep that all straight with curriculum and things that have to, like you said, by the end of the year we gotta get through this and, get you to the point where you can do that multiplication or you can do that whatever. How do you keep that straight?
Well, the beauty is we have them for 6 years. There isn't a new teacher every year, so I have them for 3 years. They're with me. So if I don't get to geometry that week, I have a whole 3 years to get to it. But it's a lot of record keeping for sure. Any teacher does a ton of record keeping. And a lot of experience, over the years. What are they ready for at what time? And we've created these mastery lists to help us. It is a lot to keep track of, but again, we're never teaching 30 children at one time. We're doing these small groups so we can see where they are and meet them where they are, and they join lessons where they are. So if they're not ready for decimal fractions, they'll work on something else that I'll be giving them lessons for, and maybe there's only 2 or 3 of them. And then they're not on a set track forever. And that's one of the big things about traditional school. Like, you have to get in advanced math, or that's it, you're on that track. And if you're not, you can't get in. We don't have kids on a set track. We have a curriculum that we follow, but we have a lot of time to do it. And if a child is not doing great at decimal fractions in 3rd grade, it doesn't mean in 4th grade he won't be great at it and be awesome at math. Or maybe she's struggling in 1st grade with some of our language lessons, and I don't put her on a certain track because she'll never be good at it. I meet her where she is, or I meet him where he is, and then they move ahead depending on where they are. And it's amazing. So many children came back after the summer and they needed a lot of review. They always do. And some children got on it right away and understood stuff, and they'll keep going. I'm not holding anyone back just because he remembered and he didn't. It's I meet them where they are and they keep going, and other children need more help, and that's why we also have mixed age groups. You'll see lessons where we have a 2nd grader with 5th graders. He loves math, he's awesome at it. He doesn't have to follow a 2nd grade curriculum when he's way past it. It's a waste of time. So he gets to be a part of other lessons, just like a child in 5th grade who's struggling, who may come to some other lessons, or may work with another student and help them to get better at fractions. And really, that's helping both of them. They're both getting that review. And so the mixed age group, how many of you work with people your exact age? Our classroom is set up like real life. You have to work with people that aren't your age. You have to get along. You have to collaborate. You have to think outside of the box. It's not just, I'm not just telling you what to do all day long.
I think the only thing I would add is, when I was in traditional schooling and I had to do a conference, I looked at the grades, I put together their report card, and then the conference was basically, here's how your child did grade-wise. And we really didn't talk about what kind of child this person was, what they liked, what they disliked, what they were into, what they struggled with. It was just, well, you can clearly see in this particular subject, they struggled because they got this grade. I go into a conference, both of us go into conferences, they're about a half hour long, and they're all narrative. It's really, we're touching on what they're learning about, but we're also touching on the child. And I can say with 100% certainty, I know these children way better than I ever knew the children that I taught in public school, only because of the relationships we built, like Kim was talking about. I'm with them, we have conversations, we work in small groups, we work with them individually, we share stories about different things, and the relationship is such that I can go into a conference again that lasts a half hour where I'm doing a lot of talking about lots of different aspects of the child and feel completely confident. I know that child, I can absolutely talk about him or her.
So I have a quick question on the assessment side. So, here you're clearly saying that they should grades based on how they're against what they're taught. But just for the fair comparison, for the sake of comparison, if a Montessori child is given an exam based on what's coming in the public school, how would they fare?
So far, so good. We have an outcomes. The last slide before thank you for being here. The last slide is really a link to the outcome page on our website. That being said, I can say, and Kim can say, our personal children have been very successful, but I also know that because of the assessments we do map testing, we'll talk about that. We do these informal assessments throughout our small group lessons. But they have a lot of tools, to be honest with you, that they might not get in a traditional setting, advocating for themselves, being able to ask the questions, being able to meet with a teacher one-on-one. My son went from a middle school that was about 10 children to Evanston Township High School, which has 3,000 children, and was able to come home and say, I'm not sure what to do here, but I'm going to talk to my teacher in the AM support group or whatever, because that's the way you do it, and I'm not afraid to do that. I can do that. So they can help themselves if they're not sure. And that's a huge tool. They're not waiting for mom and dad to bail them out and say, well, and I used to get those calls. I used to say, he's having trouble. What can we do? And I would say, well, first, let him come to me. Let him ask. And these children from Montessori and from Countryside are able to do that. This I really don't, this is really just, again, a comparison. I've talked a lot about this. This is more or less if you grab one of those packets and want a little bit more on the comparison basis. It's just basic differences that we've already talked about, but I wanted to include it in case you wanted to look at it later on when you're rehashing what we talked about.
One of the things I just wanted to
Yeah,
add
please.
to something, first of all, did I answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, good. One of the things about the differences in Montessori, and Sean touched on it as well, we focus on not just academics, we focus on the whole child. So we focus on academics, we focus on social and emotional intelligence, and we also focus on, physically. We know them so well, and we get to know them because we have them for so long. It's not a new teacher and a new thing every year. We know the whole child. Whereas in a traditional setting, it's different in that the focus is academics and achievement, and that's the track they're on, and that's what's most important. They don't necessarily know the child. They have them for a year, and then they have to go to a new teacher. So I feel like Montessori is different in that way because we're focused on the whole child, and we're looking at them not just academically and what they can achieve academically. We're thinking about them socially and physically and emotionally, and how does this look outside of Countryside? How is this child able to function outside of here in a different environment and going to a friend's house, and will they get a job? And so we are looking at the whole picture instead of just one part of it.
I just want to add something to that, because we had a discussion, Kim and I, with a child earlier today who has been having trouble finding somewhere to sit at lunch. I feel like no one wants to sit with me, and I feel like I can't. So we had a talk, and it was really about, well, first of all, why do you feel that way? And then secondly, it was really about the jokes he was making weren't being really well received by his peers. And so we found a way to say, well, maybe if you approached it this way versus these jokes. My point is, that is part of our everyday. We have these talks, and Kim will come to me or I'll come to her during the day, and we'll say, can we sit down with so-and-so? I just think that, this came up, and I think they really need to talk. And so that is as much a part of our day and as an important part of our day as anything we teach. So the continuing journey in elementary really starts as, some of this I've talked about already, but core knowledge. As Kim said, we have a curriculum that we follow. We have lessons that we have to give and want to give, but we're teeing it up. And ideally, when we're done with that lesson, the children are exploring math, science, technology, literature, geography, etc. And then something I didn't touch on earlier, but I know Kim did, are these great lessons. When we start the year, every year we have a great lesson, which is about the coming of the universe. And we really get the kids excited about how life came to be. And we talk about dinosaurs, and we talk about explosions and lava, and then we even have our own little volcanoes. So it's really cool. And we have a lot of those at the beginning of the year to kind of set that tone and light that fire that they can really go far with. We have one for math, we have one for writing, we have one for reading. And so these great lessons really come out as kind of a primer for them to get excited about different things. And then throughout the year, we have our different lessons and opportunities for exploration. But then in a perfect world, thus the arrow going down, is individually chosen research. I worked with some 5th graders, and we studied ancient Rome. So I've had some children that have said, I really am interested in and you have to know this girl. She wanted to study Roman fashion. And so I said, absolutely, if you want to study the Roman clothing back in the day. Another one wanted to study gladiators. Another wanted to study architecture. So I give background information on ancient Rome, and we talk about it for days about different aspects of ancient Rome. And then if they want to go in that direction, more power to them. That's awesome. And that's the individually chosen research part. We really like to go old school. Computers for us are a last resort, not the first resort. Google is if you really can't find it, you can sit with us and we'll look at Google. But really, I've talked about all the resources and materials we have in the classroom. We're really trying to get them encouraged to seek out books. Yes, books. So they look at books, and if they can't find the books that they like, we go to the library with those children, and they pick out the books that might supplement their learning. And then they're writing about it and reading about it and getting even more interested. And then if they're really excited, they present their findings to their peers. And that is, for me, the ultimate. When a child studies something and he or she says, I studied turtles, and I really want everyone to know what I know about turtles. And so they set up a presentation. They got a poster board, or they might even put together a PowerPoint, or they might have, working with our art teacher, and have a paper mache, Kim's favorite, paper mache of a turtle, or things like that. And it's really cool because they are teaching them. They are the teachers, and they are the experts on turtles. In one grade in particular, there was a big rush of the love of puppies, so we had to eventually calm down the puppy love. But really, it's a wonderful thing when these guys get so excited that they want to present to their friends. So social development elementary, this was really broken into 4 parts. Craving the company of their peers, absolutely. Kim and I really try to foster that as much as we can. There was a child today eating by herself, and I said, what are you doing? So-and-so's eating over here by herself. And immediately she got, and got over it, and it's being with your friends and that healthy buzz again. They do want to sit together. They do want to work together. They enjoy it. It's not a competition. There's no grades, so there's not a competition. Well, I'm doing A work over here, and he's only doing C work, so I'm going to stay over here. They want to work together. They want to learn from each other. They'd much rather have an older child many times teach them something than us even. But, yeah, we got to do what we have to do. They learn the many benefits of friendship and conflict resolution. So I talked jokingly about the hierarchy of problem solving in my house. But we do have a hierarchy of sorts here at Countryside in elementary. If the children can't work it out themselves, we have older children, and I'm talking 4th, 5th, 6th grade, that we encourage to help them see if they can resolve it. See if a peer can help you out first. There's only 2 of us, and there's all these other children. Try them first. Then if it can't work out, we'll sit and talk, like I said, and we'll discuss, and we'll figure out what's your side of the story, what's your side. Let's see how we can meet halfway. And then this is something I really like. They learn how to balance the needs of the many and the needs of the individual. The lemonade stand was a perfect example. They wanted to make a lemonade stand. How's that going to serve their elementary community? Oh, I know. We'll use the money and put it towards recess equipment. Today, I had a bunch of older kids helping me gut pumpkins because there's pre-K, K, pumpkin carving coming up Friday, is it? Yeah. So how can we give back and help out our younger children? Well, we'll gut pumpkins. Now that was hilarious, by the way, because some of them had never gutted a pumpkin, and when they had the guts in their hand, anyway. But they tutor. We have a lot of children that leave the classroom to go tutor younger children in Mrs. Shaw's room, and Ms. Garzaloni's room, and Ms. Mendoza's room. They're reading tutors to their own peers in the elementary community. They check math problems. So there is always a sense of giving back. You've been down this road yourself. How about you get back to the younger children and see how you can help out? It's an expectation. I mean, we assign mentors at the beginning. You're going to be a mentor for this child, and they can't wait. The only assignment is we think you'll work best with this, but they are wanting to do that. They volunteer. Please, can I Now, sometimes I don't take it personally because I'm like, do you want to just get out of the room? But no, they want to tutor, they want to help out, they want to foster the learning of younger children.
And everyone wants to feel needed, and we don't create a need, the need actually exists, and they feel that, and they know that. They know they're needed, and they know that they have to help other children, and they love that part of it. And children, there's a part about, people always ask us, well, what about a child who's really struggling with the freedom and balancing their freedom with the responsibility? We do provide structure when structure is needed. There's always been a child that's everyone in our class has been at a single seat by themselves where they need more interaction with the teacher. There are children that have a list, they're having a hard time choosing work, and they need to narrow that down. So there is structure in place for the children that need that structure, and inevitably everyone does at some point. I have some boys who are super active. It's hard for them to sit still. Well, luckily we're never sitting still all day long. They're moving around all the time. And I've even taken some boys outside, and I tell them, remember, we run some laps. I don't run with them. They run laps, I should. And then they come back and they take a minute and they take a deep breath, and then they get back to work. So we're not, again, it's very individualized for what they need. And so children can be successful, all children can be successful in our environment because we're providing what they need, whether it's structure, whether it's freedom with responsibility. We give them the freedom to choose their seat and choose their work, but they have a responsibility to do their work. And it's up to us as teachers to be observing and working with students so we know they're really not choosing their work. Molly Dunlap, who we didn't get to introduce earlier, she is in our class. She works mainly with lower elementary, but she's all over, and she helps us to see, like, I've checked in with this student, they're really struggling with this. So we keep that conversation going all the time so we know what each child needs and provide it for them.
So this is always a big question. What about grades? Yeah, well, we don't have it. It's just the best way to put it. And the more I've thought about it over the years, the more I felt like, not being in a traditional setting and now here at Countryside, I thought that a grade when I taught in traditional kind of said the understanding of the child as I taught it. It was almost a commentary on how well I taught something. Like, if they got a C, that means I must have not done enough to get them where they need to be. Not so much what they understood. It was such finality. Like, I'm a C student in this particular subject, so therefore I must be average. Or even if I got an A, therefore I don't have to try as hard the next time because I'm an A student. These children, more often than not asked how well have I done it. Is it good enough for this? Is it good enough for this? But how much can I do? How much can I work on this? Again, can I take this a step further? Or I'm good, I've got it, and then I'd like to move on, and we can do that. I'm not going to read it, but basically it's what Kim was talking about. There is so much more than just the grade aspect in the academics. We really are teaching to the whole child. We're following our mission about respect, responsibility, and resourcefulness. And Guy Khaleesi, who used to teach here, told me this all the time. It really, if they're feeling comfortable, if they're feeling safe, if they're feeling like they're supported, then the grades, if you will, the performances will come. But a lot of times it was, when I was in a traditional setting, it was, again, a grade commenting on how well I taught that subject, how well their parents supported that subject in home, and how well they did on a test. And so everything was just kind of finite, and it wasn't really reflective necessarily of the child. Here we have children that take ownership and want to do well because they want to, not because they have to, not because so-and-so is doing better than they are. And they come up to us a lot and go, what do you think? How did I do? Is this good? And more often than not, Kim and I will look at them and just say, well, how do you think you did? How do you feel about it? And they take a step back and, well, I like it. Well, that's wonderful. Then you should. It looks like, and a lot of the comments we make are really more of, it looks like you put a great deal of effort into this. It looks like you took your time on this. It looks like you really were interested in this subject matter. It's not, this was A material, B material, C material. This was, your effort really showed that you care a lot about this work that you were doing. And then assessment, Informal assessment we talked about is really through our small group lessons. I can get an idea of where a child is at with a certain concept much better in a small group environment than I ever could with standard tests and filling in bubbles and writing out essays and things like that. Informal assessment also provides us with immediate feedback. It's not how soon can I get to grading the paper that I can tell how a child understood that particular subject matter. And then we do have one standardized assessment we do, MAP testing. It starts in 4th grade. And the reason that we like it is twofold, and Kim, please add to this, but one, it gives us a chance to see what the child is doing well with and feels good with and what they're struggling with. Math testing gives you feedback categorically. So math, for instance, gives me 4 categories of assessment. Your child may be low average in this area, but they're high average in this area, or they're average here. And then I can base my instruction much more directed on what they are doing on that particular math test. It's an assist to me, and it helps me to plan my lessons better, and again, to get that individual aspect. And I've actually, it's helped me to plan my small groups a little better. Like if I have a certain amount of children getting in the 99th percentile on math testing, I'm going to work with them differently on things that they might get stimulated with than I would with children who are struggling with different concepts and who need to work on that particular thing for a little longer. And then again, most of our work is done at school. When they get a little older, they have book groups, and so they might be reading a little at home. Kim and I like to offer math practice at home, maybe 10 minutes. So nothing overwhelming. They're not coming home with a stack or a backpack, where they're looking like a hunchback, and coming home. Everything's done here. And that is wonderful because we are able to check in throughout the day, see how they're doing, and see how we can help out. So this is really what I touched on earlier. What about after elementary? We have a very good track record of outcomes. We've had children that go to Glenbrook Academy. We've had children that go to very fine procedures colleges. Most of the time when they get back to us, they're telling us that the biggest challenge was really getting used to the size. And that was, I'm coming from a small pond and I'm going to a big lake. That was certainly my son. But academically, he felt like he was absolutely prepared and his grades would support that. We have children that come back often and tell us that, again, the biggest struggle or the biggest challenge, that's a better word, was really just to get used to the different environment, the size, the pacing, the structure of I gotta go, I have 5 minutes to get from this class to this class, things like that. But it's been a great run as far as our alumni and the feedback they've given us. But this is the address I encourage you to go to just read about more individual cases, different students that have come to Countryside and have taken their time to give us information back as to how they're doing and what they're up to.
I think the other thing most of the alumni have talked to us about is that they don't really get to know their teachers, and that they were so appreciative now looking back that they knew their teachers here at Countryside so well because we had them for a longer period of time, and they didn't have that when they went and had a new teacher and switched classes and all of that. So that's another big one, I feel like.
So if there's please.
What I've always really liked and appreciated about Montessori is like the minimal or lack of screens, but how do you balance that with the ever-changing world with AI and and all this stuff that they're gonna have to learn in order to be competitive in the real world?
Whose child has ever had trouble learning anything about technology? They don't have any trouble. We're learning technology. We do have laptops in our class, but we don't use them because we know at home they use them, and we know we've never had a child, like my son is 32, and he knows more about technology than I could ever imagine in he came to school here. So I feel like children learn about technology, and if we're spending time during the school day using that, it's not really necessary. They're going to use it at home. They're going to learn these things. It's not that we don't teach it. If they want to do a PowerPoint, we sit down with them and we work with them on it.
I want to share a story. I have a son who's 18 months who was recently started here. I mean, he's so young that as parents sometimes we think that should we or should we not expose him to technology. So our biggest thing was no. But then we were rethinking, what if he's behind, other kids? But then we thought, okay, we'll just evaluate as we go, but for now, let's do it no. So he's not exposed to TV. We recently put up a TV, but we don't watch a TV at least throughout the day or as long as he's awake. We try not to give him phone at all, and none of our family members, we encourage them not to do it so that we're all on the same page. But I see, sometimes if he gets his hands to my phone, he's able to navigate through it, although he's never been exposed to it. So I think it's just in them, and they just kind of learn on their own. But yeah, I agree that sometimes we as parents think, okay, what if he's behind everybody else? But then I think they're going to be fun.
Yeah, they really do learn. And as they get it, we're not saying no to technology like Michelle's saying, but as they get older, they're more exposed to it, and there's more formal lessons with the computer and with technology. But they do, they see their parents, and they just learn things differently, now especially than they did even a few years ago.
Sorry, I don't mean to transition the conversation. I don't know if this was mentioned. You had mentioned quite a few times a second grader working with a fifth grader. Is that how, so in the classroom environment, is it first through fifth in one big space upstairs? Is that what that is?
It is. It's first through sixth, and it's really. When I first came up there, I said, "This looks like a one-room schoolhouse." It is a huge room. We used to say we had a soft divide where most of the older kids were on one side and the younger, but it's very fluid. I mean.
So they're really collaborating,
Yeah.
an opportunity to collaborate from first to sixth, and then you both co-teach that whole section.
Yeah.
Sorry, if that's.
Oh no, that's
a great question.
Yeah.
Let's assume everyone knows.
I'm sorry.
That's a great question.
we were talking at the beginning of the year how much we wanted to improve on that, and so I am working with first graders, second graders, actually all of them. Now that I think about it, I'm working with all of them, but different aspects, and that's where Kim and I work best together. Is I said. I really am interested in ecosystems, and I like to, usually this is a third grade thing. Can I work with the third graders on ecosystems? Oh yeah, go for it. And then I admittedly had a geometry lesson that I can't get over the hump. I could not do it. And I said, Kim, would you mind bailing me out and doing the sums of angles, or sums of the angles of the quadrilateral? I can't even say it. So Kim worked with that, and that is a fifth grade and fourth grade lesson. So we're working with everybody, and I love, and Kim's pretty good about it as well. We love to go all over and see how. It's like we're running for office sometimes. We're going over, how you doing? How's things going over here? But it really, again, it's all about building those relationships and not confining yourself to one set of children. It's working with the whole class.
We'd love to have you come observe.
Yes, absolutely.
And just see, I always recommend to observe in our classroom and observe in a traditional setting, because you can see both. I've heard my daughter teaches up in public school in Lake Forest, and they don't let parents come observe during the day when the classroom is working. They only let you come after school, which seems strange, but still, go visit, and definitely you can come visit our classroom during the day. The children love having visitors. The Mamanis came today, and it was a whirlwind. They were our first visitors, so it was very exciting. And I think it's important to come see, so you can see it. It's easy for us to talk about it because we know what it looks like. But if you've never seen an elementary classroom in action in Montessori, when you should come, even if you have 10 minutes, just come up, and it doesn't distract the children as much as in the pre-KK classes. It's a little more planned out and it's a smaller environment. But we love having visitors and the children love to show off their stuff, so please come.
How many students do you guys currently have in that room?
35.
And is there a max where you had 40, then you'd have 3 teachers, or?
Yeah, we've had as much, well, since I've been here, we've had as many as 70 in elementary, yeah. But yeah, we plan staffing and that sort of thing depending. Right now it's Kim and myself, of course, and Molly, and it's worked wonderfully because again, we're working with everyone. Back at a time there was more upper L and lower L instruction. It's very, as I said earlier, very fluid now. Yeah.
Do you have stopping point, as you mentioned, if they are not ready, let's say in decimals or whatever? So you say we have another year, we have another couple of years to learn that. But if they don't get it, let's say 3 years pass, they didn't get divisions or multiplication, whatever. Do you have that stopping period where you have to say, hey, okay, let's sit down and do this?
Yeah, we have a mastery list that all children in that grade, at the end of that grade, should have mastered these concepts. And if they haven't and they're really struggling, we're talking to you about that because then there's something else going on more than just the instruction part. But that guides us for sure.
Do the children know their mastery list, or is that something, because I know it's a lot of student-led learning, do they know, like, kind of, I have to finish this, or not today, but this is my deadline, or some sort of format of mastery for that, a rubric, or however it's called?
We give them a lesson list at the beginning of the year,
Okay.
and that's first grade, that builds as the year goes on because they don't have a foundation yet, right? So second up gets a lesson list, and those are all the different lessons they've received over time, really. And sixth grade, obviously, it's going to be much bigger than a second grader, but that gives them an opportunity to look back and go, oh, I haven't practiced this in a while, so I'm going to take this material out. Or I start every year, and I think you do too, where I give the lesson list to the children. I'm like, just take some time and look it over. What do you remember? What's kind of foggy to you? What maybe I made a mistake. You never had a lesson.
So they're really self-assessing.
Yeah.
Throughout the year.
Yeah, they really are. And if they don't feel comfortable, the beauty of this environment has been I've had children pass by a lesson and go, you know what? I don't remember how to do that. Do you mind if we get together at some point? I had a fifth grader do that just yesterday with a certain math concept. She said, I noticed you were giving a lesson on that. I wasn't here that day, or I was out of town. Do you mind if I get it? Or had another student, I don't remember how to do that. Can we sit down and review? Yeah, absolutely.
And then usually towards the end of the school year, we give them the mastery list and we'll say, go through, see what you need to work on and what you should be practicing and what you should be reviewing. So
Over the summer, you mean?
Separate from
Okay.
the lesson list that they
Nice.
get. And the lesson list we give in the beginning of the year, we only are putting those lessons that they still need to practice. So that a fifth grader isn't practicing bead frame addition, So we take off the things they don't need to practice and keep the things on that they should still be reviewing. And then we meet with them in the first 3 weeks of school and we go through that list together and we tell them if there's something you don't remember how to do, ask your friends. They can help you. If they don't remember how to do it, create a list, put it on my desk, and we'll meet on that together.
Are the children allowed with devices in school, like phones, watches, or?
Question.
No, if they bring that sort of thing, we have a coat room and they keep it in there.
The watches, we do have students that have watches and they have to be on school mode during the day. And if it's a distraction, they just put it on our desk.
Yeah, good
From
question.
your experience, since you've been in public school and Montessori, can you tell, is it possible to tell if the child is more going to succeed in public setting versus Montessori setting, based on the personality of the child?
Terrific question. I'm biased. I think this can work for everybody. But that being said, we we'll tell the parents sometimes, what do you think? What do you think is the best environment? That's why Kim says sometimes parents are ultimately going to decide. I'm biased because I've been in both, and I know that Kim and I have adapted a million times over the years for a lot of different children. What's nice about this is in the public school setting, if a child has needs, then there's quite a path you have to go down to get the child the support. And it may not necessarily work at first take, if you will, and then it's kind of procedural throughout the year, and we'll see if it takes or it doesn't. We have the freedom in a Montessori environment to try something right then and there, decide when we're going to assess if it's working, and take something else. We've been very fortunate that let me back up a minute. We've had children that have had autism in a severe fashion that flourished as much as children that came from a traditional setting and came in. It's a method. They learn. At first, they're thinking, this is awesome. I can choose wherever I want to sit, and I can do whatever I want to do. Then they learn. Obviously, it's not a party time, but I just believe in it, and I believe that we can accommodate and we can adapt to any learner. There are children, as Kim said, that need more structure than others, and that's where you might think, oh, the traditional setting's better because they'll be in a whole class setting and they'll be facing forward and they'll be listening to the teacher, but we have things that we can do in the class to not simulate it, but give the child the structure they need, whether it's, well, you had the freedom to choose your work, but for right now, I'd like you to try these 3 things first before you go and choose. These are things I need you to do. Or I need you to sit by me just for a little while. I'm helping you get back in the rhythm of things, and then if you want to choose where you'd like to sit. Or, you know what, I noticed you were sitting next to this child and it doesn't seem to be working out. How about you sit over there? So there's always, for lack of a better word, interventions we can put in to provide as much structure as they need to succeed.
Well, I think the most important part that's different is in the Montessori setting, we're counting on you guys for a partnership. You know, we're working with you. It's not, we're expecting you to hold your children accountable and have expectations and to communicate. And so that's a little bit different. In a traditional setting, you don't have to really be involved. You can kind of take a seat back and let them kind of do it. It's focused mostly on academics, and you can just be part of that. But in our classroom, we need, we want you to be a partner with us, and we work together as a team, to help your child be most successful, however that looks. I know we've kept you guys way past.
Yeah, we can leave the rest of the questions and they can
Yes,
approach
come.
you.
Yes, we'll be here.
Thank you all for coming. This is really amazing.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you both.